So I've cut down the gear shift lever, and to be honest I thought the generator was going to hit this, but I started with a hole for the carb because I knew that would stick through. Put the top on and it exactly fits. I mean, this is literally touching the top of the carb. See, I can't even push it down, which doesn't matter because the engine is bolted in solid. It's not on flexible mounts, because it seemed crazy to me to have the engine wobbling on flexible mounts when it's rigidly bolted to the rear axle. You're just going to put huge stress on the adapter unit and the gearbox. So it seemed to me was to make the frame rigid as possible. If I'm going to mount the rear axle rigidly, I bought the engine in rigidly, and yeah, okay, there might be a bit of vibration coming through to the seat, but you know, I'll live with that. Anyway, so pretty impressed with that. Obviously I might have to trim it back a little bit more. I don't know if the linkage even works. Well, they might do, look. It might work. I'm kind of surprised how good that is. So now I'm going to stick my camera through here with the flash on and take some pictures, and the same this end, and just see what the clearances look like. Because the other thing is I'm now running at 12 volts, so I need to change the generator for an alternator. You can get them. I'm just hoping it's not bigger in diameter, because I reckon the clearance is pretty minimal there. But yeah, apart from that, I'm amazed that fit so easily. I thought that was, so either it's my brilliant genius design and measurement right at the start, or just plain blind luck. Right, just a couple of small things. I've lengthened the steering mount to lower the steering wheel a bit, re-drilled these bolt holes. It hardly makes any difference to this. I need to connect the rod from here to there. I think what's going to happen, lock to lock, the wheel is going to foul these. So after all the effort I went to try and buy that, I may go back to the original design, which you can see is slightly shorter. There you go, you live and learn. And then the other thing I've been doing is bending this strip of steel to match the curvature of my bodywork. So if you can see, if I lay this on, lay that there, like that, you see it takes the shape of the bodywork. And then you've got to imagine, so if I cut a piece of wood that shape, imagine another one there. I've got a cunning idea for this fairing. It's going to be two-stage, so it's going to come up. Imagine a fairing that's sort of that shape, then imagine a smaller one coming down, blending into it. That's the plan. Right, I've cut this piece, well, I'm sorry, I've bent this strip of metal to the shape of the rear deck. Rear deck there. So I can cut a piece of wood to that shape, and it should, in theory, so here's the planks I've got, cheap wood, should be able to build up a structure on here that represents the rear cover. I've got loads and loads of pictures of rear covers on cars, but this one's interesting because it's a bit like mine. You see it's got a largish roll cage, but they've blended it in to the body much better than some others. For example, here you've just got it sticking out. So I'm thinking of ways to blend it in. So I'm going down this route, so I'm going to have a windscreen a bit like that, a wind deflector, which carries on solid on here, blends into this. You'll notice they put a panel on top of the roll cage here, so it comes down to about there, and then the fairing starts not from up here, from about here back, but the top of it at least the first bit, is kind of flat. You just kind of see it there. And then you can see in this picture where they're building it up, and you can see how they did it. So they've welded a panel on there, and then they've got two side pieces like this, and then this triangle here is actually flat, so it fits, it sort of blends in better with the roll cage somehow. So I'm going to start experimenting with like a wooden buck based on this kind of structure. So inspired by this, I'm just experimenting with little metal panel there, be welded on, so my fairing won't have to start up here, it'll start down here, but it'll still be blended in. These two are just coming to a point, and the aim is give me something to slot cross sections onto at intervals of about a foot. Gives me something to make the aluminium to, and I've ignored my own advice. You see, this one's vertical, it doesn't look quite right because this one's vertical and this one's like that, and the reason it's like that is because this piece of wood didn't use a set square when he cut that. It's an angle, so when he screwed it in, it's twisted the wood. So, you know, if these things aren't right to begin with, everything else that comes off it is wrong, so I need to redo that. That's the next little job. Right, I've redone this. These are both vertical. I've checked them with my little device here. They're both vertical. So if you look at the shape of the fairing on this area here, you'll see it doesn't just come round and down. It comes down there and then it kicks out like that, which fits with this picture here. So what I'm thinking, and then I've looked at loads of different fairings. Same with that one. Comes down, then it's got like a little kick out in it. That one's slightly different. It comes down and then flares out. Could do that. This one, pretty conventional, and then he's got the scoop at the back, because remember I need to scoop some air into my fairing to feed not only the carb but the radiator, because there's going to be a big hole here feeding air down behind the firewall here. So there's going to have to be some kind of scoop arrangement. So I'm going to have a relatively thin central spine. You can see it tapers down to nothing. So this is my buck basically to make that, and then so it's all just tack welded together and screwed. And then I'm still going to have structures that go like that down the sides, but they're actually going to be air scoops. Not sure if they'll be louvered or scoops, feeding kind of in to the bottom part of this spine, so they're going to run like that, and they'll be separately made, tapering down to nothing there. So I think it's just easier to make it that way rather than have the scoops on the top down. I was going to have a spine here made of air scoops basically that get smaller. It's actually easier to have the spine made as a kind of reference point and then fit the scoops on, and they'll be individually fitted on, individually handmade all the way down. So that's going to be a ton of work, but it could actually look quite nice. Right, so you can see what I'm doing here. So I started with a cardboard template like that, and then I cut some slots in the sides, so as you shape it over the buck, these give you an indication as they overlap as how much curvature you've got to put on it. So I got that roughly right, cut out the aluminium. There's about an hour of shaping so far in this. So you can see there's obviously a curve developed here, but I need a bit more. See how it rocks. So it needs to come about 1.5 centimetres, or 1 centimetre each end, maybe something like that. So there's two ways of doing this. I could shrink the sides, which is why I put these tucks, or I could expand the middle, which is actually this area here. So you can see, well, you can't see, but if you were to look underneath, you'd find that part's about right to there, and so I need most of the extra curve bang in the middle here. So it's basically a bit more wheeling, and I'm using the most curvaceous wheel here underneath like that. I'll check what I've got. I think that's the curviest one I've got. So to do that, I used the rubber wheel here, put a curve on it about that much, and then used the solid wheel that way and sideways to just stretch out the middle and start to put that curve on. And then one side effect of doing all that is you get this nice, you start to get a shiny finish, because the wheel is actually rolling out the imperfections in the surface. So I'll do a bit more and then come back with the camera. Well, I've just been tidying up my buck. I've been using a countersink like that on these screws here. So countersink it into the metal and then use a smaller screw, so it makes it flush here when I'm finally fitting the aluminium. So you can see this end is pretty spot on, and this end, I mean, I already know this almost perfectly fits, and you can see that end, it's okay, it's not perfect. You see it's nice curve there, and then it sort of flattens out a bit there. So really I want a bit less curve there and a bit more here to get a nice even arc. So I'll just put the rubber back on the top wheel here, and I'll just do that. So if you look at that now, it's a lot more even. So basically I put extra curve in here where I've got M for more, and then once I'd done that, these were like facing in a bit here, so then I just manually open them back out like that. That's a lot better there. So now it's time to test fit it for the 58 millionth time. Right, so I'm pretty pleased with that. It's a good fit here. Most importantly, it's a really good fit here onto the wire under there, because obviously I'm going to make another piece that's got to join up with this. So if that's wrong, the angle's wrong, it'll all wrong. Now this piece, there's hardly any curve on that. It's almost straight, not quite. If you look, see a little bit of curve, hardly anything. So I don't know if that's going to be harder or easier to do. Obviously it's going to all get a bit tight just here. And this is not just a continuous curve, it's a curve from there to there. It's flat, this last bit. I actually rolled that using 2 flat rollers, that piece there, in the English wheel, and the same there. So when they're screwed to the wood, that'll just hold them perfect. When this is screwed to the wood, these bits will grip the tubes, will hold it from moving left and right. Obviously I may trim that back eventually, but for now it's actually quite useful. I can actually run some tape around there as well, just to keep it central, because you remember, this isn't the whole thing. I'm going to have some scoops that go like that and taper down, scoop, tapers down, all overlapping each other down the sides, feeding air in here. So that should be, this will all be cut away eventually once it's all welded together, but for now the wood is useful to screw this to in a few places to hold it all put. But yeah, I'm really pleased with that. It's got the right curvature on it. So this is just fixed on with little screws for now, because the vent's going to come in above where the screws are. So the next thing is to mock up this piece. So here's my cardboard template. I've just left some spare at the end. I mean, it'd be nice to sort of feather that in, wouldn't it? So I'm just going to leave some spare metal. So see, it doesn't rock. got the curve right there, but I've got to get a lot more curve this way now, which will probably then change this curve. So I'll ease it into shape bit by bit. Right, well I tack welded that on the frame there, and so I've got an almost invisible weld. That's 120 grit, so I'm going to go down smaller, finer and finer grit and then polish it. It may actually be almost invisible then. Not too bad. Reasonably pleased with that. So there it is, back on. This will need trimming later, but for now I'll just leave it as it is.